What's up, guys? As you can see, we are beginning the closing processes for all of the accessories on the Fury tank. I'm really excited to be able to get this tank all finally fully assembled so that we can start doing the final weathering. So this is what we're going to be starting to work on today. So the first step, as always, is to prime. So I'm going to get my air compressor all fixed up and we're going to get ready to go. I'm thinking I'm going to prime these in a pretty dark gray. I'm not going to go black, but I'm going to go dark gray, so we're going to mix. Hey, what's up, Kappa? Starting a little bit early today. I'm going to change things up just a little bit. I'll talk about it as soon as Brayden hops on, if he hops on early. Or whenever he hops on, we'll talk about the future. But as you can see, we're going to start doing all these accessories. Finishing up the major parts of the accessories on live, and then during the week I will do the rest of them. So we're going to start with a dark gray. So I'm putting 2 drops of black. And I'm sorry, that's off cam. And a healthy squirt of gray in there. And where's my mix-in brush? Add a little bit more black to that. I feel like sometimes with the really light gray that's just the standard Vallejo primer, it's hard to tell if you've got a decent coverage or if you've missed anything. So I think in the future, if I'm doing just a one color primer, I'm going to start mixing these together just to get a better neutral gray color. See, that's looking pretty good. Alright, I'm going to spray off on my handy dandy napkin real quick. And as always, remember that first coat doesn't always go on super even. So you're just looking for a tack coat. We're just wanting the paint to stick. Nothing super special. How's your Monday going so far, Kappa? Alright, nice and smooth and easy. Looks like we've got some very good coverage with the medium gray. So that's going to work really nice as our base color. So depending on where you are, if you're at a computer, if you're at your mobile, you probably won't be able to follow along with the reference that I'm going to be looking at, but if you're on a computer and you have a second monitor or you want to put this up in a small window, I just did a basic Google search for World War II wooden crates. And there's a bunch of different variations, but you'll see kind of what we're going to follow. I'm thinking that these crates, for the most part, are decently new. From what I've read, when the tanks are on mission, they're not out there for a super long time unless they got lost or something like that. So they're not going to be holding on to these supplies for months on end. Most likely, at least in this scenario. That's what I'm going to call it. Okay. So we got our primer put down. Let us real quickly clean out the cup. And then we're just going to switch right into our raw wood color. Now, as I'm cleaning this up, just to let you guys know, I am using a specific set of acrylics for all of my base colors for the wood. AK Interactive makes a set of weathered wood paints. There's a number 1 and a number 2. Number 1 is more of your earth tones, your tans, and your red browns, and all that kind of stuff. And the number 2 is all your grays, like really aged wood. So I've got both of those sets, and those are sets that you can actually pick up at Hobby Lobby. Yeah, hey Braden, good to see you. Yeah, I mentioned it last Wednesday that I'd try to start early, and now that you guys are both here, I'm gonna be changing up how my channel's gonna work a little bit. I've been considering it all weekend, and I got a couple of comments, and some people have talked to me, and I feel like I need to be splitting up my time more efficiently. So I'm going to be doing a longer stream on Mondays and just streaming once a week, just like everybody else. There's no other people that I know of in my different art circles that streams more than once a week, and I thought it'd be cool, but I need to be putting out another project at the same time. It's going to give me time to actually start working on a second project. Because basically what I'm doing right now is I've got live, basically takes up half of the week, and then I've got the tips and techniques videos that I'm trying to work with and edit and stuff like that, and that I'm scraping through time, and they're taking a couple of weeks to put together, and they shouldn't be. They should be like once a week as well. Then I'm doing commissioned miniature painting, which is stuff that you guys will see eventually, but right now it's just on my own. And that's for cash. And then I'm supposed to be working on another project that's an edited project, so it's a nice clean looking project where we don't have all this waiting, so that people that hop on can just really enjoy the process of the building and the painting. And they're much shorter. So that's supposed to be going on at the same time, and I just don't have time for it. Oh, the Bandai models? Yeah, man. Dude, Bandai models are the best. I love Bandai models. Still my favorite. You'd have to show me another kit from anybody else that I think would be better at this point. And I'll be trying a lot over the course of the next year. But anyway, not to rant on it or anything, but we're just going to start cutting back on the live, because honestly, the live right now, you know, it can turn into something, and that's great. But right now, it's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people, and you guys are the only ones that actually even chat with me, and it's awesome. But I need to be working on a second project or a third project or whatever you'd call it. So that's what's going to start happening. And I've got this whole awesome workbench full of great models. So we're going to start another project. And I'm actually really excited about it. And it'll give me more time to devote to making this live stream even better. Alright, so I'm going to put Flow Improver in the bottom just like I do for everything else. AK Interactive's paints come a little bit thinner. So this is what I'm going to start with. It's called Wood Base. It's just a nice, fresh tan color. Put 10 or 12 drops in there. And with this, I don't even think I need any type of alcohol. So usually, you know, with that new system that I'm using, I would add a drop or two of isopropyl alcohol. In this particular situation, I'm thinking I don't even need to. Kappa, your Corsair looked awesome, by the way. Good job. And I like your little drawings that you put up every couple of days. Those are cool too, by the way. I don't think I ever told you. So this wood color is going to come out pretty thin, so just go on there nice and light. Get to turn this back on. So a lot of these pieces, the smaller pieces of tools, have wooden handles and such. So we're just going to go over the whole thing and give it a nice coating, even though most of it's going to be covered up by another color anyway. I think this is the only piece of wood that we've got over here. The rest of this is... those are all cans, ammo cans. See, our paint is super thin. So just over and over again, we're just going to build up this layer. And we're getting down there, so I'm going to add freshly cut timber, which is just a little bit darker. And I think this varnished wood, which has a little bit of red to it, I'm going to add 2 drops and see what happens. Just looking for an interesting fresh color. So they got eaten up pretty quick. Oh, that is weird. Alright, so I'm just added a little bit of the brown color, or darker brown, it's called varnished wood, and a little bit of freshly cut timber to the stack, so that we get a little bit more color to this as we're adding. And I'm gonna real quick give it a brush with the hair dryer. One of the really interesting things about AK Interactive Paint is that the makers try their best to give the paint the proper amount of shine. So these paints, especially with the varnished wood in there, is going to end up having a Yes, it just depends on if your nozzle has the appropriate tip. See how mine hasn't have a tip at all? The reason why I don't have a tip on it is because I cut it off. It was actually a permanent fixture, and it picked up the paint. And it made the paint drip and ooze and cause clogs and all kinds of stuff. But if you've got a regular fanned tip, then yes, it's a beautiful thing to be able to do the blowback. It's an awesome way to mix your paints. I think I actually covered that in my airbrushing video. So I found out that because my camera is not actually recording, it's just using the output to go to my computer for streaming, that it doesn't actually use the autofocus, which is really weird. If I move the camera, then it will change focus, but by moving anything that's in the camera's view and leaving the camera stationary, it won't focus. So the trick to that, to fix that, is that I have my iPad set up next to me, and it's wirelessly connected to the camera, and I can now change the focus with the iPad, but it brings up those tool controls, so it's kind of annoying, but it does work. So I'm getting this interesting texture going on right here, which we'll fix as it dries. So for the next few minutes, this is going to be it. We're just going to go back and forth with this for a while. Going back with a hair dryer just to speed up the drying process, so we can get some layers on here as quickly as possible. And basically what we're going to do is I'm going to be looking for a certain tone. Once I get that tone, then we're going to stop. We're going to do a wash. And then we're going to pull out the oil paints and do a little bit of a breakup. And that's really how this works. It's as easy as that for small objects like this, especially the newer ones. And once the breakup is done, that variation, we're going to stop, because then it's time for decals, which we'll do at a later date. So no weathering, no dust or dirt, just some tones with the oil paint. And that's important to remember, especially if you've got decals. You're going to want to give it some time. And once those oil paint's dry, then before you put the decals on, you want to get some clear coat, so that your decal set doesn't make a mess of your paint job. Alright, so we're pretty khaki-ish looking to me. I don't know if that's showing up super well to you guys. I feel like my color tones are just a little bit off. Well, yeah, we're missing just a little bit of red. So I apologize for that. I don't know if I can actually change that with this. Doubtful. Oh, I know what I can do. I can turn down the white light, and it'll redden out a little bit. And then we'll brighten this up a little bit. Sorry for the shake. That looks pretty good. It's closer. That's pretty good. Alright. Yeah, so you can see we've got some... It's a decently tan tone, but it's nothing super special right now. You can't tell the difference? It's going to be based upon everybody's phone, so I'm looking at my monitor, and then I'm looking at the crappy TV that I've got it on. And they're all... Each one is different. And your phone is going to be probably the most different. So I apologize for that. Now we've got the color that I'm looking for. That looks pretty nice. Now I am very lightly going over this board, because this board actually would be the oldest piece of wood on here, because it goes on the front. So we're going to go back over that board with different tones than we would for these pieces. Now, the one thing I'm thinking about doing is, should I give it variation already in tone between the different types of boxes? And I think the answer is going to be yes. So we've got this interesting, more yellowed tone going on right now. And that's awesome. There we go. Now let's add just a bit of variation to it, just on a couple of the different boxes. So I'm taking wood grain, which is actually a pretty reddish color, and we're going to mix that in. And I'm not doing any dilution with these paints anymore. They got too thin too quickly. So the AK paints are very much airbrush ready. And I'm just swirling this around. I'm not even using a brush. Alright. So we're just going to pick a box. And I'm looking for the edges. And that's what I'm hitting with this brown color. Now I find oil paints easier for doing all these tonal changes, But technically speaking, aside from doing like the wood grain type washes and stuff, you could do all your variation with the airbrush if you really wanted to. I have a Master Airbrush T40. If you want to learn about all of the stuff that I've got, then just hop over to my airbrushing video, and I tell you all about it. But I like it. It's a good compressor. And it's inexpensive enough that if it breaks, it's no tremendous loss. It's still, I mean, it's $100, but you can buy airbrush compressors that are a lot more expensive. Okay. I like it. I think we're going to let that dry. We're going to clean out our airbrush. And before we put the airbrush away, we're going to go and do some green work on those ammo cans real quick. And that's going to be very similar to what we did last week, but I just want to do it with the airbrush to make it quick. Then our wood will be nice and dry. And we can move on to bringing it to life with a nice wash and some oil work. Braden, to finish answering your question, I believe it's a T40 or a 40T is what it's called. The airbrush compressor by Master Airbrush. So I've started using isopropyl alcohol to actually clean the airbrush after I use the basic like dish cleaner to break up the paint. It seems to be working super well because it's very fine, you know, that alcohol is super, super thin. It goes right through. Does a pretty phenomenal job. Alright, let's pull out that green color that we had before. It's still on the table. I think I'm going to open up the f-stop a little bit. Oh yeah, forgot that doesn't work. It's this screen that works. And we added just a touch of black gray to it. No, it's already at 400. Okay, that'll make it a little bit easier for you guys to see because more will be in focus now at the bottom. Alright, let's stir all this up. looks pretty good. I'm gonna grab some alcohol. 1, 2. That's it, just a couple of drops. It's gonna make sure that all those pigments are very evenly mixed. It is a wondrous thing. And I'm pretty sure that the AK paints and like MIG ammo paints already have a little bit of isopropyl alcohol in them if they're fully prepared. Vallejo, however, does not. Not that I know of. Okay, so let's move this out of the way so we don't get any overwash. Move our piece of wood out of the way. So, Kappa, now that your Corsair is done, what's next on the list for you? That green covered extremely well. Like, boom. There you go. That's ready for oil paint. So almost done with the airbrushing for a while. So I'm going to dump this out and do a quick, thorough cleaning. And just remember, I'm using just a regular old Tupperware container with a microfiber cloth in it to soak up my paints. Nothing crazy. And you can go a decent amount of time with acrylic paints without having to worry about getting a paint booth or anything like that. It's one of the reasons why acrylic paints are the bomb. Please do keep your fans running though, and keep your rooms ventilated. Because I'm sure everything that we work with, whether it's acrylic or enamel, has been known to cause cancer in California. Very important for you Californians. Okay. I think we are pretty much clean. Yep, everything's looking good. Now time for the fun stuff. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's because it's something that's a little bit more new to me, but I love the oil process. It is just too cool. Instant results, maybe, I don't know. And then it takes forever to dry. But still. Okay, move these paints off to the side. Bring back our wood. Okay, we're a little sticky. So we're gonna hit this up, enjoy some music for a minute. Alright, I'm going to use an acrylic wash on these first, because we're still trying to match that nice and newish, maybe recycled kind of wood look. So I've got a couple of different tones to try out. Let's see, strong tone, mid brown, and soft tone. So for those who don't know, I use Army Painter for my washes, my quick shade washes. They make a good wash. I do very much like them. And they're from the military, or the miniature world. So we're gonna try soft tone first. I want to make sure that we get this wash on before we start messing around with the oils. So we'll just try this stuff and just see what happens. This is the wrong brush for this job. I don't know why I'm using that brush. You know, the more I look at this container, the more I think this container's metal. So the grain on these resin pieces is very, very, very fine. So there's not a whole lot for the wash to soak into, unfortunately. Ooh. Okay, we're stopping right there. That is a layer of paint coming up, and we do not want that. Easy to fix will become impossible to fix if we continue to mess with it. Yeah, look at that. Just peeled up one layer. Just like skin. It's crazy. Okay. So while we wait, let's do some hand painting on our tools and get our tools finished up. We're going to let all that dry. So I'm going to go back to some regular old brushwork. And I'm looking for a nice metal. So we're going to use some metallizers. And then I think dun 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 dun. What would be a good color? I think we're gonna use weathered wood. Alright. The AK paints are almost too thin to stick on top of themselves. But we will make it work. So one of the things I made sure to do when I put these on the tape was to make sure that the portion that actually got glued onto the tank was on the bottom. That way we really don't have to worry about it. Are you guys able to hear me? Are you guys just chilling? So this piece here, I don't know why I put that on there. That's actually a big old metal bar. So we're gonna leave that off. We'll just paint it metal here in a second. I feel like maybe just chilling. Nice. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure everything was working. Everybody was just so quiet. Of course, it doesn't help if I point what I'm working on away from the screen. Okay. That looks pretty cool. They're slightly sticky, but not overly so they're almost dry. So I'm using the texture of my finger to knock off the craziness there. Now it can just dry and it'll look like it's some sort of weird stain whenever we're finished with it. So that's actually going to turn out pretty cool. Alright, we're going to start the metal process with the that same dark metal that we did for the guns last week. I'm a big fan of metallizer paints. I know that Tamiya has some, Mr. Color has some, AK has some, MiG has some. Allclad was a big name in metallizer paints. They're like it's a lacquer paint for doing metals. But I was watching a miniature painter on YouTube a couple of 6 months ago or whatever, and he started trying out these Scale 75 paints that I'm using right now. And Scale 75 has made awesome miniatures for a couple of years now. But they had also started making a line of paints, and I was just thinking in my head whenever they started doing it that they're like everybody else, and you know, it's just one of those things I guess that you just want to do. But turns out that they make some of the best brush-on metallics on the market, and I got the silver series, and I'm going to get the rest of the series. They've got a couple, because it is beautiful metal. Absolutely love it. How do I create grass? There's a variety of different ways. It depends on what kind of grass you're looking for. Back in the day, actually I have some of this left over from the mud stuff. This is static grass, but in big tufts, and I would have to cut that, and I actually laid that by hand before I realized what static grass was. So I've had this for like almost 20 years. But now you can buy static grass in whatever size you want, and then just get a static applicator and apply it. And then you use turf for ground cover. That's on my list of videos to make as I start doing dioramas. I think on Wednesday, in lieu of the live stream, I'm going to start I'm going to do a snow diorama for my Star Wars speeder, which you guys can see on Instagram or Facebook. The speeder's been done for a while, but I never did a base for him, and I've always wanted to do a good snow base. So I'm going to do a snow diorama and show you guys how to work with snow. Which it seems like at our scale it's not that hard. I have an HO scale model train that I'm working on, like once a month or something like that, especially right now while I'm so busy. But snow is a little bit out of scale for HO scale. But for 135 or bigger, it's perfect. And there's a variety of different things about, or schools of thought on snow as well. I just apply glue everywhere and sprinkle sawdust on it and then paint it. To me, it turns out pretty good. Okay, so thing about sawdust is that sawdust is a product that is used to make the flocking that you would buy in the store. But what you need to be doing is you need to be painting that sawdust before you apply it. So take a container, preferably a large container, and get a sifter, like a strainer that you would use for straining macaroni and cheese, and strain out all the big sawdust, so that all you're left with is the fine sawdust. And then take your acrylic paint and some water, put that in the bottom of the container, pour your fine sawdust into that, use some gloves, mix it all up, or not some gloves, whatever you want. I would use gloves. And then now you're going to get painted sawdust, which is what you would use. Okay, good. Yeah, I just think it would be more difficult to paint it after the fact. Oops. Yeah. Yeah, there's a guy called Luke something on YouTube, and he's a master at the foliage and finding cheap ways to do foliage. That's how I got that idea from, and it makes complete sense. So feel free, please go watch his stuff. He's awesome. I plan on putting a lot of the things that he's got on mine. Okay, so we've got a nice first coating for our metal paints. I mean, I guess you can do that, but that's not a very controlled way of doing things. That would be my only critique on that process. It's not as natural if you apply the paint like that. Okay. we're going to give the oils a shot. So my oil is still good from a week ago. Or at least some of it is. The white's still good, the yellow's still good. So I'm just gonna do some experimenting here. Oops. Sorry, that wasn't in frame. My bad. So it's all about that same oil process. Nothing changes for your toning. So I'm just gonna add a little bit more brown. Man, camera is super shaky today. I got to get that on a different table. Or something. That's so annoying. Sorry, guys. It's attached to a very large clamp on my table. It's like one of those architectural desk lamps, but like twice the size. So that thing's attached to. Yeah, that is actually really awesome. There you go. Little bits of tone variation. I'm thinking we need to play with... I need to get some more oil paints is what I need to do. Some of these mixtures of oil paints just aren't going to work. So you just need to find the information again. Is the basic point of that. It's unfortunate, but I know what you mean, because there's a lot of politicking that goes along with that. But you've got to know a lot of good history websites and stuff that you can do your citing from. See how crazy this red gets with just one little tiny drop? It's supposed to make the whole thing a little bit warmer, but it's just the wrong tone of red for the process that we're going for, so. There's a company that makes some pretty epic oil paints that I look forward to trying at some point in the future. Did you know that if your brush strokes are even, you can actually create wood grain with oil paints? That's your actual brush. That texture. I'm a big, like, audio guy. So I had some like awesome speakers and nice little home theater projector and all kinds of stuff at the place I used to live at. And I was so into it that I decided I wanted to build my own set of speakers, and I did. And I wanted them to be very different than what the average speaker looks like. So I made them crazy and abstract and whatever. And I actually created the shell with a CNC machine, put all the different pieces together, and then covered over that with layer upon layer of sanded plaster until it had a hard shell around the wood. And then I painted that with oil to make it look like a polished wood surface, and it turned out really, really cool. Sorry, that one's a little bit hard for you guys to see. Trying to leave everything on this makeshift sprue. A CNC machine is a machine that takes a drawing of an object and cuts it out of a piece of wood. So you've seen 3D printers, and they can print something in 3 dimensions by layering plastic on top of itself. So a CNC machine has a router attached to it, basically, and you cut into a piece of wood. So like if this piece of foam was like a 4x8 sheet, this would be the router, and it would just go and, you know, trace out an object over and over and over again until it cuts all the way through. And you can get like super, super fine, you can get big ones, small ones. It's an amazing machine. I want one so bad. My boss had one for a while, and I was grateful that he let me use it once to make these speakers. So I actually cut out circular speakers in layers, and I think each one had like 8 or 9 ribs to it, and put them all together just like you would for a ship. But it's a genius tool. You can use it to make furniture. You could use it to make anything. So this is one of the few times that I'm going to break my rule about, like, horizontal surfaces go in one direction and not another direction. Because I'm not streaking anything, really. I'm not going in random patterns on anything, really. I'm actually streaking most of it because I'm creating more wood grain. And that's the goal. And if we let this stuff firm up a little bit, then we can really play with it. And I can make it look very interesting. I think I'm going to age this box a little bit as far as just the actual tones of the wood. So we're going to start with a white and really get it on there. And then as we slowly remove it, it'll give us a nice aging effect. Because we're basically sun bleaching that wood. And it's really important when you're making boxes like this to vary the tones of these wood, because these boxes came from, you know, they could have come from completely different states when they were made. Just because they held the same objects doesn't mean that the actual boxes and crates were made from the same place. Definitely not the same tree. So this is just the very, very beginning. And that's why it's good that we have another hour before 10 o'clock. I'm almost thinking it's time to separate these a little bit more so we can get at them. So our tools look good. Oop. This way. So they're pretty cool. We'll do a little bit of highlighting on them later. But let's retape this real quick and spread these guys out so that I can see all the angles that are going to be visible. Now the bottoms, you might think, why am I not worried about the bottoms? And I'm not, because I'm looking at the picture and they're all stacked on top of each other. So the bottoms are never visible. Okay. And we got that guy. So let's go back to our whitening. Alright, so what's a good complementary color that you think would go with that light? I want it to look whitewashed. Nothing. Wooden boxes. Just trying to finish up the stowage. You are free to go. You can always watch the replay of the stream whenever you want to, man. It's gonna get really cool. We're gonna make all these boxes look completely different from each other, but I know you gotta do what you gotta do. I'm not gonna be on Wednesday. We're not doing live streams on Wednesday anymore. We're gonna do longer live streams on Mondays, and I'm gonna do a third project, or second project, on Wednesdays. That's gonna be edited. So more like just watching a video. People seem to like that a lot, and I need to be working on multiple projects at the same time. So we'll still get the same amount of time as we usually do per week. We're just going to get it on in one day. Okay, let's try something interesting. I'm gonna plop down a touch of the green paint, and let's see what adding a little bit of green to a box looks like. I'm gonna tap most of this green off. Just want a little bit. Clean and brush up. Looking to see how it stains. What kind of variations we can pick up. I need to make like an orange color to go with what we're doing. I think that would be a sensible idea. So that's pretty darn orange. It's coming out very orange in my cleaner, which I need a clean glass for. So same thing with the airbrushing, you want to make sure that you've got a clean one with some thinner in it, so that you can get most of it out of your brush, and then the rest of it. Okay. So, What happens if we add a little bit of this orange to one of these boxes? How about the ammo box? Okay, so we add that. Then let's add some dark brown to the bottom. So that hopefully we can get an interesting blend. If I pop out of frame, again, I apologize. Just kind of spinning this thing around. Whites are at the top. And we're going to try to do a gradient tonal change. Make sure the thinner is pretty much off of the brush. We don't want to make it watery. It's interesting. Now, of course, this stuff is going to look, I think, much more realistic once there's dirt on it, but I'm not going to put any of that on there until the decals go on. The orange tone is interesting. I wouldn't say that it's really anything special. So far, the most natural looking is just using the different tones of brown, but I just find that that's kind of boring. But maybe that's okay, right? I feel like this is one of those things that just kind of gets locked into your brain, and you're just going back and forth, and you're saying, okay, you know, what looks good, what feels good. Because technically, I mean, that off yellow color is the color, and without putting weathering on there, you're not getting that real dimension that you get from the Google images. So just by changing these tones, how much extra coolness can I get? It's kind of what we're asking ourselves. been decided that this crate is going to be a lighter color. Keeps on coming off that tape. Okay. See, these three still look very similar to each other. This looks pretty different. This obviously looks different. This looks different. These two look different from each other just because they're different levels of whiteness. This one has its own little flavor going on. So what can we do? I almost think... Pretty sure this is a metal box, so that's why I'm going green. So if it looks crazy, that's why. Just made the choice. And you'll see how I fix this here in a minute. You know, there are people that can paint an entire model in oils. I thought about doing a figure painting completely in oils. I think in my mind about how awesome the color blending would be on it. I need to add a little bit more brown to the palette. So by adding this burnt umber to the green, it darkens up right away. Still a very green box, but I don't know. The more I play with it, the more I think it could be an interesting piece. So I guess the only thing with oil paints that would throw me off wanting to do an entire figure with them is that, I mean, the brush strokes are very apparent, which is what makes them awesome for wood grain. So I'd love to be able to put in a little bit of variation to this green, but I can't until the large portion of that green dries. So it's dark green now, which is great. It's a little bit different in tone than the rest of the army greens that we're using, which might make for an interesting strongbox. Who knows? I'm gonna run with it. I'm gonna see what happens. So on this one, we're just going to take a darker approach. And that should react really well with the weathering stuff that we do later. Because we'll get a nice wash on there once the oil dries to bring out the details. And I might actually do an oil wash on top of oil, you know? That way it seeps in there and goes real thin. And then once we get the dust going and get those lighter colors, it'll start to take shape and look really interesting. And the same will be said for the ones that are already light. They will just age beautifully. Okay. So if we take a look at all these, everyone is just a tad, just a touch different. Oh, we've got this little piece here. Yeah, okay. So there you have it. There's some boxes with some different tones. We've got our tools. And they're all ready to go. They'll get their weathering whenever we put them on. We've got our ammo boxes, which probably just need a quick one-color tone with the oils, and then they're ready to go. This guy we can finish when we finish the tarp. We've got last week's beginning work. Hey, look at all this stuff. And then we've got our tanks. So all of this needs to be final weathered and then installed on the tank. And then what I'm going to do behind the scenes are the rest of the pieces. We've got some rusty tank tread, a couple more pieces of canvas, some more boxes that I'm going to be doing in video form, a tire, a bunch of German helmets, and some metal pails and things. So just a few things to do, and that's what'll happen over the weekend, or the week and the weekend, is all of these will get finished. You know, ultimately, I have found that the technique, there are some difficult techniques, no lie, especially once you get into the airbrushing, but the process, like the actual technique of it, is not hard. It's just a matter of practice, like just being able to control a brush, to control an airbrush. You know, weathering techniques are just a matter of dusting in a certain direction, you know? And these things are just going to spring to life once the final weathering comes in. Like, this hasn't even been touched with oils yet. I've got some really cool stuff in my mind that I'm going to be doing for oils on that this week, and that's just going to be awesome. So we've got some really cool things coming up. And again, I apologize for having to take us from going live 2 days a week to going live just on Mondays, but that's what's going to allow me to start working on the next project, which is going to be this guy. Let me see if I can zoom out here. So I've got this guy here and his base, and I want to make a really cool, like, snow scene with the snow speeder. Have some, like, tufts of dead grass, like some sort of interesting texture going over the top, and actually create a snow diorama. So that's going to be done this week, and edited hopefully this week and released next week. So that's what that extra time is going to allow me to do, is to start working on a couple of other projects, and then start working on probably the USS Arizona, and make that a nice edited video. Just being able to get more of these projects out. I also want to really focus down on miniature painting, which for you guys would be the 1/35th scale figures for your dioramas and things like that. So, you know, lots of stuff to do, and I just don't have enough time to be able to put all of my eggs in one basket, as it were. But I'll be live again at 8 p.m. Central Time, Monday. All of this will be on the tank, and we will be starting the official weathering, quote-unquote, process for the tank. I know we have not done the tank treads yet, so we'll probably do that as well. I don't think that'll take 2 hours. It could take 2 hours. That might be its own video. We'll see. But those are basically the ideas that we're going to get started with. And then behind the scenes, I've got some great other stuff that's going to be coming out. But thanks, guys, so much for watching. I know we're cutting it out just about a half an hour early, but there's not a lot left to do until all this dries. And I'm going to do all the oil work, which you've seen a lot of behind the scenes, while we're away, and get this stuff stowed on. So I'll talk to y'all later. If you like these videos, please subscribe. Please share to social media and to all the places that you like to go for model making, so that we can get more people involved. And I will talk to you next week. See you later, Kappa. Yeah, I think it's going to be cool doing the early streams. You know, I get home, obviously after my day job, and I can get on just a little bit earlier than 8, but I like 8. 8 works pretty cool. So I'll see you guys later.